So we're back outside. What's happening, everybody? Justin, Bridgewater's finest on YouTube, Blockbuster_guy on Twitter. Welcome to week 18 of my weekly CFL football pick show. And yeah, definitely needed a change of scenery after last week. You know, it's a real shame that I imposed upon your understanding for the fact that there was no video last week, and I repaid that understanding with arguably the worst picks I've given you all season long. So yeah, needless to say, we are striving for better here in week 18. A 3-game week, so the margin for error is incredibly thin. And yeah, we're coming off of a 3-9 week, where basically it was one of those weeks where the league just decided as a whole it was going to go in the exact opposite direction to what I believed it was going to go in. And the result is, a week that you're only 2-2 straight up and only got one of the 8 betting picks correct. That is rough. Still 12 games over 500, picking the league straight up. But, the betting picks are both like 5 and 6 games underwater. I'm only 1 game up for the whole season. So, obviously not where you'd like to be entering week 18. But hey, it feels like there's nowhere to go but up. I did have a bit of a bounce back week in fantasy, getting back into triple digits. 104.5 last week, 1941.1 on the season, which means my average has dipped below 115 per week, down to 114.2. A lot of that can be credited to the 70-some points that I had the week prior. My ranking did drop another 47 spots, though, off of that 104.5, down to 332nd overall. So now outside of the top 250, still well inside the top 500, but again, we want that top 250. That was our goal right from the start of the season, and I felt it was attainable. I still do. The top 500 has 1911.5, so I'm still like 30 points inside of that. And the top 250, I'm only outside of it by about 18 points. So we're right there, right in the thick of things to get back into the top 250 and be where we want to be in CFL fantasy. My 2 leagues, the CFL Central Fantasy Football League and Christina Costabiles League, I fell 9 and 3 places respectively in those leagues. CFL Central, 43rd out of 1,372. Christina's league, 28th out of 380. At the very least, my most outstanding player from last week did what he could to try and keep me above water, and that was Lions quarterback Nathan Rourke, 266 all-purpose yards, had 3 total touchdowns, did throw 3 interceptions, which is obviously not helping things. That was good for 22.1 points and the 2 times captain multiplier, so a 44.2. That was a large chunk of that point total. As I mentioned, we've only got 3 games on the docket this week. We've got the Saskatchewan Roughriders, who have clinched a playoff spot in Ottawa, taking on the REDBLACKS off of their bye. We've got the Hamilton Ticats, who have now also clinched a playoff spot. They're in Toronto, taking on the Argos, another battle of the QEW. And we got the Calgary Stampeders on the road in BC, taking on the Lions. The Ticats and the Stampeders, both on the tail end of back-to-back road games. I hope the camera caught that. So let's start in the nation's capital, the Saskatchewan Roughriders in Ottawa, taking on the REDBLACKS. The Riders have dropped 2 straight games around their final bye of the season, heading into this one. Their remaining games this week in Ottawa, they're against Toronto. They then go to Winnipeg and close the season against the BC Lions. The REDBLACKS come off their bye, having also lost 2 straight games. Their remaining schedule, they got this home game against the Riders. They then have a home and home with the Montreal Alouettes. They're in Montreal and then get Montreal and Ottawa, and then go on the road and play Hamilton to close out the season. They also pulled a trade within the last couple of days, shipping defensive lineman Lorenzo Malden IV to Calgary in exchange for a draft pick. Look, the Riders come into this one and basically the rest of their games this season with their destiny in their own hands. They're 2 games up in the West Division, 4 games to play. That could start manifesting itself as the Riders resting players in the coming weeks. I don't think that's a huge concern this week, but I think resting for the Riders could certainly come up in the next couple of weeks, even though, again, they're in the driver's seat to get that bye in the West Division. This game's pretty cut and dry as far as I'm concerned. The Red Blacks shipping out a player strictly for draft capital is usually a sign of a team that's showing their bellies. Like, I don't think Ottawa has any, like, they're not officially eliminated yet, I don't think, but I think they would need so much to go right for them in the remainder of the season in order to kind of backdoor themselves into the playoffs. Like, having that home and home with Montreal towards the end of the season here, now that Davis Alexander is back, that's just killer. So the fact that they shedded from their roster and a big piece of their defensive line, probably a team that's showing their bellies. I really don't think there's going to be a ton of fight in this one. I mean, they could have something in garbage time that makes it close, but I'm very heavily on the Riders here, the 10-4 Saskatchewan Roughriders, to get the win here in Ottawa. Red Blacks only 2-5 in their own building this season. Let's take the Riders on the road in Ottawa to beat the Red Blacks. On the line, Ottawa's taking plus 3.5 here as a home dog. The Riders in their last 7 wins would have covered minus 3.5 6 times. So since I like them to win, I'm going to go ahead and lay that minus 3.5 on Saskatchewan, even though the game is in Ottawa. Total in the game set at 53.5 points. Actually, the smallest total of the week this week at 53.5. The Riders have only hit 2 overs in their last 8 games. Let's lean on the under in this one. Under 53.5 points in Saskatchewan. Ottawa, we're going to go 28-20 in favor of the Riders. Riders win. Riders cover the minus 3.5. Under on the point total. Off to Toronto we go for the latest installment of the Battle of the QEW. The Hamilton Ticats in town to take on the Argos. The Ticats clinching a playoff spot last week due to Toronto's loss, despite the fact that Hamilton got absolutely drubbed 40-3 at the hands of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Ticats remaining schedule here, they're in Toronto. They play Calgary at home. They then get a bye, their last bye of the season, before they play the Red Blacks in their final game of the season in Hamilton. The Argos dropped their 10th of the season last week, second straight game, as their playoff hopes continue to dwindle. Their remaining schedule, they get Hamilton at home. They then have back-to-back roadies in Saskatchewan and in Calgary before they get the, in this case, unenviable final week bye. This game critically important for both of these teams. If Hamilton wins this, they basically all but sew up the East Division if they win this game, with the fact that the Alouettes are on a bye. Hamilton wins, they should essentially wrap up the East Division. And this is, look, it's do or die for the Argos. The Argos need to basically win out, and they need Montreal to lose out to have any hope of kind of leapfrogging them or leapfrogging Montreal. I had to think about the lineup here for a second, but to have any hope of trying to sneak into the playoffs, that's what they need to happen. They need to win out. They need Montreal to lose out. That's a ton of help that they need, but they're not dead yet. Unfortunately, after this game, I believe they will be. It is the 6th straight game for the Ticats, and they are on the tail end of back-to-back road games, so those things do definitely factor in, and the fact that the Ticats have already clinched a playoff spot. That does kind of contribute to the calculations here, but the Ticats are 5-1 against the East Division this year. They have done extremely well against division opponents. Toronto's only won 2 of 7 division games so far this season, so they have not had those same levels of success against common opponents. I just don't see a pathway for Toronto winning this game. So we're definitely on the Ticats in this one. Gimme Hamilton to get the win in Toronto over the Argos. On the line, the Argos are only taking plus 1.5, so again, they're a very minor home dog in this one. I like Hamilton to win. It's a small price to pay. Let's lay the minus 1.5 on the Ticats. Total in the game here is the largest total of the week at 57.5 points. I like this thing to go over. Toronto's efficiency on defense has been a struggle all season long. The Ticats have been very hot and cold defensively. I think this goes over. I feel comfortable with this getting into a 60. So let's go over the 57.5 point total in Hamilton, Toronto. We're going to go 34-27 in favor of the Ticats. Ticats win. Ticats cover. Give me an over on the 57.5 points. And the third and final game this week is the Calgary Stampeders on the road in BC, taking on the Lions. The Stamps and the Lions are both gridlocked at 8 wins in the West Division, jockeying for playoff seeding, potential crossovers. There's all kinds of stuff still remaining at hand here for both of these teams. For Calgary, their remaining schedule, they got back-to-back road games in BC here and then in Hamilton. They then go home to play Toronto before they go back on the road to play the Edmonton Elks. So a lot of road games remaining on Calgary's schedule here. For the Lions, they play Calgary this week. They then get a bye next week, so a late season bye there, before they play Edmonton at home and go to Saskatchewan to end the season. And it's interesting there how the tail end of the schedule for both of these teams lines up, because you have the Stamps here that have a game in hand. They've had all their bye weeks. They play every week now until the end of the season, while you've got the Lions, who have a Week 21 matchup against a Riders team who will have likely wrapped everything up by that point. So they could be looking ahead to that, first round bye. They could be resting players. There's an interesting, the chess matches that go on in situations like that, right? Where you don't exactly know what you're going to get from that team in Week 21. The Stampeders have made the bed that they're currently lying in with 3 straight losses where the defense has allowed at least 31 points. So the offense has done some scoring, but the defense has been almost unusable for the last 3 weeks. Meanwhile, in BC, you've got a Lions team that is carrying all the momentum coming into this game and a defensive turnaround since that 52-point game against Toronto, about a month ago, where the defense looked terrible. Since that point, they've basically had a nice stretch of games here where they're getting stuff done on both sides of the football. That's definitely good enough for me. I'm very heavy on a Lions team here that has won 3 consecutive games. They're scoring points. They're playing a team that's, again, second straight game on the road. They've lost 3 straight at the Stampeders. Just 2 teams going in exactly opposite directions. So we're going to go ahead and take the BC Lions here at home to get the win over the Stampeders. On the line, the Lions are laying -3.5 here at home, and that's sort of the same deal as when we talked about Saskatchewan. The Lions would have covered this number in 5 of their last 6 wins, laying -3.5. So I'm going to go ahead and lay the -3.5 because it's not exactly much of a hedge. Total in this game set at 55.5 points. I'm just feeling a shootout in this one. I think Calgary gets desperate here towards the end of the game. I think BC is going to do what BC does on the offensive side. Give me an over on this one. Over 55.5 points in Calgary, BC. We're going to take another 60 here. We're going to go 36-24 in favor of the Lions, who win, cover, and go over on the points. I have concerns that the sun above my head here may be screwing with the video, so I'm hoping that's not the case, and I'm hoping you hear me okay. I'm also hoping I have a dynamite week in CFL Fantasy. My Week 18 CFL Fantasy roster is right in front of your eyes right now, and as you can see, we are stacking ourselves some BC Lions, a team that I think is going to get above 35 points this week. We're going to go with Nathan Rourke at quarterback. He has had a massive game against Calgary earlier in the season. The Stamps are really struggling against the quarterback position lately. So give me Nathan Rourke. We are going to stack him with James Butler, who's not on the injury report anymore. So we have to assume he is good to go. And also with, of course, Keon Hatcher. Really, there's a debate between Hatcher and McInnes, but I mean, they both cost the same money in fantasy. Calgary has struggled pretty well equally against where both of them line up on the field. That didn't sound good. I'm going to try to cut that out, but we'll see. The rest of my roster is going to line up like this. Spencer Brown at the running back position. I like, obviously, what he has done. I like his cost. He is not an expensive asset in CFL Fantasy. Hamilton has struggled against the running back for most of the season. So Spencer Brown feels like a mid-cost option that could return you RB1 numbers. I'm also going to go Keelan White and Keandre Smith as my other 2 receivers. Keandre Smith is a positional play. Toronto has really struggled against where he lines up on the field. For Keelan White, it's the same deal. The one spot defensively that the Riders have really struggled with is, I believe, that right side wide receiver, which is where Keelan White lines up. And for only about $5,000, he's a nice low-cost asset that could return you double-digit points. So we always like that. We're going to run with him as my other wide receiver. And I'm going to go with the BC Lions on defense. They have had 3 big fantasy performances over the last 3 weeks. I have them winning the game. 24 points is not a terrible amount to give up. So we're going to roll with the Lions on defense for not that much money. There you have it, folks. Those are the picks and those are the plays for Week 18 in the CFL. We'll go over them here with you one more time. I've got the Saskatchewan Roughriders beating the Ottawa REDBLACKS 28-20 in Ottawa, laying the -3.5 on the Riders, taking an under on the 53.5 point total. I got the Hamilton Ticats beating the Toronto Argos 34-27, Ticats laying -1.5, and over on the 57.5 point total. And I got the BC Lions beating the Calgary Stampeders by a couple of possessions, 36-24, laying the -3.5 on the Lions, going over on the 55.5 point total. Thank you very much, by the way, once again, for me imposing on your patience for having no video last week. We are back. We are doing the videos here straight through to the end of the season and straight through the playoffs. Hopefully the picks are better this week than they were last. That's it for me, Justin, Bridgewater's Finest on YouTube, Blockbuster_guy on Twitter. Enjoy the games in Week 18, the abbreviated Week 18, and we will see you again for the beginning of the true stretch run next week in Week 19. Only a few weeks yet to go till we're talking about some Canadian playoff football.